All right, thank you. You may be seated. All right, before we get started tonight, I would like to make one addition to the agenda under 3B, as in boy, after the minutes approval, that we add citizens' time. I want to make sure citizens' time is different from our public hearing because they're two separate things. So if you all could add in citizens' time, so in case any citizen wanted to speak, it was omitted. All right, let's look at the minutes approval from the last meeting when we had the joint session.
Chair, I make a motion to approve the joint town council work session dated February 27, 2017.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second?
I will second it.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, unanimous. Moving on to citizens' time. This time, if any citizen would like to address the Planning Commission, please step over there to the podium, give us your name, your address.
To be good at this. There you go. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Marchant Schneider. I'm a resident of Haymarket at 14811 Rising Sun Lane. I wanted to comment on several items on the Planning Commission agenda this evening. I do have comments regarding the Zorn ordinance. I will make those comments during the public hearing. But in terms of on your agenda, you had used to have updates regarding 1 mile jurisdiction projects. Many of you may have seen that the public hearing notice went up for the John Marshall Commons Comprehensive Plan Amendment, and that's preceding the next hearing of the rezoning, the accompanying rezoning. They're offering or they're proposing to go from regional employment center designated land use to a mixed use designation, and that hearing will happen on April 19th. I've not been able to keep as much on the project as I wanted to over time, but I did want to offer there are some opportunities or some benefits for that proposal. When we look at the traffic circle, I know there's been discussions about the traffic generation numbers of the project, but I think that traffic circle does provide an opportunity to traffic calm traffic coming from Prince William County. That's a planned 4-lane facility coming into a 2-lane facility through town. So I do believe that provides a traffic calming measure. It also creates a distinction. We're starting to lose that clear distinction when you leave the county and leave the town. I think the traffic circle will offer that opportunity. Also, the planned density. For a long time, we were competing with industrial and commercial development in and around the town. In a lot of the economic studies the county was doing, they were discounting or not including or accounting for commercial properties we had within the town. So as more of these commercial properties come off the market and develop residential, I think that's an opportunity to market our housing stock, but our commercial building stock in town. I think that density also provides a critical mass. We need more folks in town, and having that proximity, having the project connect to our pedestrian network, I think will create more of a lively downtown and hopefully bring more people walking, biking, and driving into town. Finally, our road network, there's 3 parallel roads that are planned to relieve traffic in and around the region. We have Heathcote, actually 4, Heathcote, 66, 55, and the Haymarket Bypass. That's, I believe, Somerset Crossing coming off of 29 will eventually reach all the way out to 15. So the traffic patterns in and around this area are quite in flux. So I think once all those get in, the traffic will be tempered, and a lot of these projects will be able to be accommodated. So those are my comments regarding John Marshall Commons. Next, you also had on your agenda a letter from Mr. Humphreys regarding Advantage Landscaping. I just want to provide some background to help the transition. You have several new staff members, and just want to provide some context, provide some continuity. Obviously, it's without question, Mr. Humphreys' business, Advantage Landscaping, has been operating in town for almost 10 years. Has had many contracts serving properties in the town. Pickle Bob's is a known quantity in the region, so without question they've contributed to the community. But by way of background for his Cat Valley Way property, this is behind Haymarket Self-Storage, behind the shopping center. It's Zone C1 Conservation District and also designated Conservancy on the town's plan land use map. And that has a lot to do with the number of constraints due to the North Fork Creek kind of paralleling that property. The floodplain, wetlands areas, steep slopes all kind of compound and limit the developable area on his property. Previously, he was operated as a garden center under the C1 zoning district. This property, or his property, was subdivided from what is now Haymarket Self-Storage. Haymarket Self-Storage was split zoned to match the FEMA contour. So you notice on your zoning map, part of it's zone I1, has a weird kind of shape to it, and the balance is zone C1, and again, that follows the FEMA floodplain. Another challenge to the site is site access. It's a private access easement to this property from 15. It goes behind the shopping center, goes through Haymarket Self-Storage, goes over railroad tracks, and then crosses a bridge. So it's a long, circuitous route to get to this property, which is a challenge. Certainly, Mr. Humphreys has been frustrated by this, and he's approached the town several times regarding his development options. He had questioned the zoning districts, and what we were able to figure out is for the longest time the county, on their mapping system, if you were to click on a town property, they would assign it an equivalent county zoning district rather than the town zoning district. So that created confusion for multiple property owners that were coming in trying to figure out what they could develop. If you go drive down Jordan Lane, the one property that's for sale in Jordan Lane keeps saying R4. Well, we have no R4 zoning district in the town. So Mr. Humphreys was able to call that to our attention, and we were able to address it with the county. We're working with Mr. Humphreys. We were working with Mr. Humphreys to restore a resource protection area. That's a 100-foot buffer area adjacent to the stream. It was on the engineer's report at the town council meeting. He had some stockpiling, some vehicles in that RPA area, so the town's been working with him to address that issue. So really, overall, it's just this is a tight site. And it's frustrating for Mr. Humphreys, but it's just with once you apply the RPA, once you apply the floodplain, once you apply the steep slopes, his developable area shrinks by quite a bit. And so I printed off some maps for you to be able to look at that. But I also wanted to make some recommendations. I think there's an opportunity to let him operate under C1, maybe better classify his use, maybe look at the road network that could support that use, maybe come up with a site plan that clearly defines his developable area. So I put some notes together to offer some recommendations. If he were to zone Z1 or I1 as his request, I think we need to take a serious look at the easement. The town is actually party to that easement, so we need to make sure there's no liability to the town, or if it would even allow an intensity of use such as Mr. Humphreys would like to propose. So, again, just by way of background, I've provided Steve a copy of my notes, and I'll provide you a copy of the notes as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you. All right, any other citizen, please?
Dottie Leonard, 14801 Washington Street. I'd like to speak in favor of your support of Mr. Humphreys' application. Sounds like Mr. Humphreys a victim of the same thing me and a lot of other people have been victims of in this town. And I have another subject to bring up when you discuss the ordinance. I know you all have worked very hard. Your hearts are in the right place. I've been here and watched it. But if we're going to let our town develop favorably, we have to work with the applicants who are willing to do it. So I am supportive of him. When you consider him, to please consider that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we'll close citizens' time. Appreciate you all coming out. Okay, moving on to the public hearing, changes to the zoning and subdivision ordinance. Anybody would like to speak to that on the public hearing, again, please come to the podium, state your name, your address, for comments on the public hearing.
Hi.
This is Jim and Andrea Payne, 6680 Fayette Street.
We're just here to remind and ask that with the rezoning that we had done on 6680 Fayette Street to the B1 commercial, we'd like to see the map updated to reflect that zoning. Okay.
Thank you.
Dottie Leonard again, and you already have my address. my concern with the zoning ordinance, as I said before, is that you have worked very, very hard, and I know you have. But if you remember when I came before you several months back and questioned something about the sign ordinance, and you were almost to the point of approving that, and I didn't want to be a thorn in your side, but when I got to the council level, I was able to bring that subject up again, and it made perfect sense, and it was changed. So I have all due respect for all of you and your saints to be willing to do this. Nobody knows more than me. I've done it myself, 20 years on the Planning Commission. So I just want you to take very, very close look at a few things that mimic the same kind of stuff we've been going through with under Bob Weir and former situations. I don't like to use names, but all I need to say is Bob Weir, and you know where I'm coming from. One of the things that's an issue is that this town, the main street from one end to the other, was planned to be commercial. And if you look at that street all the way from Sheets down to my house were planned or rezoned, and my house was rezoned to B1. And then Bob Weir decided to protect some fraudulent stuff that had gone on the property next to me to downplan Mr. Watts and Miss Rafferty. You fixed that. God bless you for fixing that. But I wasn't fixed. I'm zoned, but still planned residential. I'm zoned commercial, but planned residential. The map still doesn't show my color. I was at the meeting where Mr. Watts was being replaned to allow commercial, to allow someone to come in for a commercial zoning application. And I got to see Mr. Schneider put the device on the table and say to the council at that time, make your motion according to what's in front of you. And I said, uh-oh, I need to take a look at that. And sure enough, it only included them and left me out. So I want you to know where this stuff is coming from, and I want you to look at it like it's your mother's, not just the town. And the town is more important than your mother because they're who put you in that position. And what I have found is that in that new ordinance, they are still saying the center of town is the commercial. 2 blocks from Fayette to Madison Street. And that for the commercial down going east out of Haymarket, it's, what is the word? Councilman, you are a councilman and planning commissioner, but it was evolving, but it's another word that they use, transitional. They called it transitional. I don't want to be transitional. The B1 zoning had gone all the way to the end of town, and we only changed the Haymarket Station development to high-density residential, which is the equivalent of commercial, because that was going to be a shopping center. It was owned by my own uncle, and I begged him not to make that a shopping center. Please, we need neighborhood shops and condo combinations. So he allowed it to be downzoned, and that's why we have the small lot lines that are in Haymarket Station. It was an alternative to what he was allowed to do. He could have made it a shopping center. So I'm just asking you, treat the whole town. Don't let that transitional term stay in there. We are commercial from one end to the other, so why let that word stay in there? And if that word is in there, I guarantee you there's something else in there, because they wouldn't be working so hard and they wouldn't be holding everybody up for months that have applications before them until the ordinance gets adopted. Everything is until the ordinance. When the ordinance gets adopted, you'll be able to do this. If they're holding people up, it's a red flag. Thank you for listening to me again.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, anybody else?
Thank you. So, wanted to offer some background on how we got here. It was a long road. When I started, first volunteered to help the town out. I don't know if I ever told you the story where I first moved into town. I was a zoning administrator for Middleburg, and I went to apply for a deck permit, a replacement deck that couldn't be seen from any public roadway. I had to go through the town council, the planning commission, and the architecture review board to get that approval. So I called the town and asked why. I could prove these in a day at my current job. Why would that happen? I said, well, if you're going to complain, what do you want to help fix it? And that's how I got involved. So as I began to administer the zoning ordinance, it became kind of a cumbersome document to implement. The inconsistencies between districts, uses, and definitions, standards that were difficult to administer. It was geared highly around the council and the commission administering the ordinance, which was a function of how you operated at the time. We were able to pass those administrative duties to the zoning administrators, so we have improved the timeline in terms of how long it takes to get some of these basic permits in and out. But what came with a common theme to folks that were frustrated with the development process in Haymarket, the common barriers to redevelopment was the predictability of the process, agents, signage, and parking. So as you know, I kept calling it the low-hanging fruit. The first barrier we tried to look at was parking. We got that addressed. Our plan was for a walkable town, but having a town dominated by parking ran contrary to that view or that image, and so we fixed the parking ordinance. Next was the sign ordinance. That went much longer than we anticipated, due primarily to the various court legislation that was passing through the courts. But generally got us larger signs, and the businesses were generally happy with that. Last was the overhaul of the zoning ordinance. And this was really meant to make a streamlined document, also comport with the town code or the state code. Recently, you've been brought site plans that don't go to the council but for you for approval. That was one of those state code changes that needed to be placed or amended inside the ordinance. So the next kind of order, following the zoning ordinance, we actually contracted for Allcom Planning Services. That's the Berkeley group, and they were meant to be an asset to me, a resource to me, and help out. And that's how we got with the subdivision ordinance. The next step was supposed to be the comprehensive plan, and then a comprehensive remapping. I think there still seems to be some confusion. This is the amendment of the text, to clean up the text. I've talked with Kimberly. She's come up with some great ideas on maybe how we reapproach how we categorize zoning districts. But again, it was to create a streamlined, easily readable, interpreted document, and then come back, revisit your land use plan, which many folks have come and asked you to look at, and then come back and comprehensively rezone those properties, much in the way that Ms. Leonard has talked about tonight. But again, it wasn't meant to be part of this process. Are there rooms for improvement? Probably. Anytime you implement a new ordinance, there's going to be things and situations you hadn't anticipated. But I think it's a good document. I think it will serve the town. It's certainly up for amendment for the future. But again, the remapping exercise I think is meant to happen later. So many owners have come in, and the request was to the most recent amendment to the planned land use map was for the transitional. I do remember the meeting that Ms. Leonard referred to that night. The question came up was a technicality. We had asked the council. Ms. Leonard wanted that to be a part of that decision. The council had to decide whether or not to hold a new hearing to change the public hearing ad to incorporate her parcel. And the council said, no, let's go ahead and deal with what we have and come back and revisit Ms. Leonard's planned land use designation at a later date. So, but these owners, the 5 parcels that are along Washington Street that were subject to that transitional commercial, they can resubmit any day. If there's new uses that they would want to account under the zoning ordinance, it certainly makes sense to wait. But there's no barrier for them right now to be able to submit their applications and go through the process. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
That technicality has been ongoing for 1 year and 2 months. And I'm the one who said, please go ahead and approve Mr. Watts. Some of you were there. Because I don't want to hold up, I don't want to tie up his approval by you to make it fair and just to me. But it's been 14 months, and I'm still colored residential on the map. So the transitional term just plain needs to go away. Property east of me is already commercial. Where the old school is commercial. Where the ice cream parlor is commercial. There are residential properties intermingled, but that's part of a town where we have residential condos over commercial. But don't take away, you're going to see in a very near future, if it's not like next month, that you're going to see approvals at the county right up to the edge of this town going in both directions that are commercial. They know we're the main street of this town. We have been since its inception. So the main street is where the commercial has always been. And again, it is a technicality, but it's one that should have gone away a long time ago while he was wearing the planner's hat.
All right. Anyone else? All right. We will close the public hearing on changes to the zoning. All right. Updates. ARB Town Council. Mr. Leek.
Thank you, Chairman. For the ARB, we met with the owner of the old Firehouse Z Properties, LLC, and discussed with them. They had brought to the ARB a demolition permit asking for the demo of the old firehouse and the bungalow. We stated to them that we would want to see a plan put in place before we would issue a demo permit. In that regards, meaning site plan, wanting to know what they're actually going to be doing with the property. The ARB wants to keep the history of the firehouse, since it was the first firehouse out here on the Gainesville side. We went ahead and tabled that to our next ARB meeting, asking them to bring a plan to us. At that point, I'm sure they will be bringing a site plan to the town planning commission, at some point as well. We have had a couple work sessions on our fiscal 18-year budgets that we've been working on. Our next meeting, I'm going to look at Ms. Kimberly Murray. It's the 10th, correct? Our next budget for our fiscal year? The 11th. The 11th at 6 p.m., 4 p.m. Excellent. So the 11th at 4 p.m., invite the public to come out, as well as the commission if they'd like to do so. And then we also have our public hearing for the budget on May 1st at 7 p.m. as well. All these dates are advertised on our website for everyone to be able to view as well. We also, within our last town council meeting, we issued April to be proclamation for Child Abuse Awareness Month as well. Mr. Snyder acted on John Marshall Commons and spoke about it. The other public hearing that is going on right now that would affect the town is Carter's Mill, which is just past Walmart down 55. That is the adult retirement community. I believe their public hearing is actually this evening with the county as well. Outside of that, Mr. Chairman, no other updates.
Thank you. Any questions for the commissioners to Mr. Leek?
Did they indicate how long it would take to demo that area, or is that just not enough information yet?
talking about the firehouse.
Yes.
The ARB does not want to, or I don't want to speak for the ARB, but pretty much coming out of it, we were pretty much saying, until we give you a demo permit, we would like to see what you're doing with the building. And we pretty much left it at that. We don't want them to just knock it down and then put something else up. We would like to be able to use the historic structure that is currently there, or be able to move it within town or something along those lines to make sure that we keep the history within the town.
All right, moving to new business, the 15,200 Cap Valley Way relocation of business. Everybody received on the back. I have some thoughts on this. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are before I make a recommendation.
Mr. Humphreys, he asked to meet with me before he submitted anything. We spoke about the property. His concern was that at some point he was zoned I-1. Some of his business licenses from in the past showed that he was in I-1 zoning. He was unsure when the zoning changed. And what he really wants to do with the property is build a shed right next to his current structure that is on the property. If you look at the topology of his property, if you go back there and visit it, where his business is located, the topology is raised up above where the river is and actually goes up on a hill to go up back to his property. So it's interesting to me, and I was trying to do a little research on this, but I wasn't able to find the minutes from back in 2008 with the Planning Commission to look back when that was updated and all. But it's interesting because below it, you would think with topology, something that's higher and something that's lower, if the river were to ever flood, that the lower would get flooded and not up on the hill. Now, some of his parcel is lower in level with the lower parcel, but where his current building is up on a hill per se. I'd say maybe about 45, 50 feet above from the river there. I would encourage everyone to go take a look at that property and to be able to put eyes on it and really be able to look at it. I'd like to motion this to our next meeting so we can all do some research on it, as well as speak with our town planner and town manager in that regards.
All right, thank you. Someone else?
I have a question about, would this require a public hearing just for this particular change?
It would.
So it would have to be set for another month, allowing us the opportunity to do what Connor just suggested.
Let's see what they say. Now comfortable. Okay. Yeah, any other comments?
Like Marshall pointed out, to verify the bridge stability and the Norfolk Southern crossing permissions.
Right.
I think that's a big thing with the equipment going back and forth over the bridge. I think that's very important.
Yeah, we have two separate things here. We have the zoning text amendment, which we're going to discuss in detail here in a minute, and then we have the proposed zoning map. They're two different things. So I think it would be wise to advertise the zoning map for our next meeting unless there's any objections. Let's get the zoning text amendment done. Next month, let's advertise public hearing, get the map done, and then we can at least push the zoning text amendment to the council so they can advertise for their public hearing because, again, they're the final authority in the town. And then we can tackle the zoning text amendment next month, and then, based on the public hearings, make a recommendation to push this up, which would be June. I think that's the best way to go, because they're two separate things.
I would agree.
Okay?
Chairman, might direct one question to Marshawn Snyder, since he does have knowledge about this parcel in the past.
Okay. I mean, I have some comments too on this map real quick, but again, I want to get to the zoning text, but since we have him here and he has a lot of history, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Sir, was this parcel ever zoned I-1?
No, sir. Mr. Humphreys asked us that question. We did the research. And as I mentioned in my earlier comments, the county and other agencies were mislabeling or misrepresenting the property, which would lead people to believe that it was a industrial zoning, but it's the zoning of the town that applies. And we were able to go back through the history, establish when Mr. Humphreys' property was part of the larger parcel. That's when it was split zoned I-1. And if you look on the land assessments in the real estate database, it refers to that rezoning. A small portion was carved off. That became Danny Humphreys' property. The Haymarket self-storage remained, and it remained I-1. So we did some exhaustive. He asked us several times and several follow-up questions, and we emailed him the zoning history back from '83 when we established the zoning ordinance, all the subsequent maps to establish that it had been consistently zoned conservation and at no time had been zoned I-1. And again, it had a lot to do with the amount of environmental constraints that really made it hard to develop any use on the property. And he's really done a good job of trying to eke as much out of it as he can. So,
No further questions. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, anybody else? All right, thank you. All right, let's, if there's no objection, let's table this to next month when we work on this proposed zoning map. And then we can, because that fits in with the zoning map. All right, moving.
Along with the zoning map next month for this Cap Valley rezoning, I think I'd like some clear statements about traffic impacts, stability of the bridge impacts, the best category, whether it's C1, I1, and the reasons why one would be more appropriate than the other in terms of the owner. So we would have some clearer way to distinguish the issues, which seem complex and multiple.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm
That
asking
makes
for.
total sense. A little bit more background in writing so we can look at it. All right, what I would like to do is just add a quick, after the town planner update, we'll make A capital A. I just want to talk about this plan use map real quick so we can give some direction to the town so we're prepared for next month. All right, let's go on to the old business, the update to the town zoning ordinance. I'm sure everybody has read through this document. We have Mr. Coffey here, and we've been working on this project for a good year and a half. Every bit of it. When I was on the council, we spent considerable time on this. We, as the Planning Commission, have kicked this around. Just to refresh everybody's memory, the document we're currently using is cumbersome if you're a citizen of the town to wade your way through that document. You'd have to have a law degree to be able to figure out what's in it. I think this is a lot better. It's more reader-friendly. I think it does a much better job with definitions. Mr. Coffey and his group have done a great job, as well as you all. We did have that joint session last month with the town council. So with that said, any comments to Mr. Coffey? I don't want to waste his time to go all the way back through it. We have a responsibility to read through, which I'm sure you did. Any comments?
I have a couple of comments. First of all, I thank Mr. Coffey for the changes that you incorporated after our February meeting, the workshop with the town council. I find this is a much more reader-friendly document. My question is, are the people of the town going to have an opportunity to read this? We now have it as of 3 days ago. Do the people of the town also have access to this document?
Yes, sir. It's been on the town's website for a month, over
For a month?
Yeah. I mean, it was put up on the website, what, March 6th, I think? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. The date on the plan, or on the ordinance, is February 28th, which is one day after the work session, but some of the final tweaks and changes didn't occur until, I believe it was Friday, March 3rd, but the date on the last version, last draft of the ordinance is dated February 28th, 2017. That version has been on the town's website.
And sort of congruent with that, I would like, and this isn't just to Mr. Coffey, this is really a Town of Haymarket comment. Some people don't use the internet. Some people don't access the website. I would like to see the sign. When you come, there's a sign at Haymarket Park, and perhaps a sign outside this building advertising such things that this is accessible both in the building and on the internet, so that we are better communicating all this hard work and all this information with townspeople. And I know personally, because I know personally with talking with people, that there are people in town who are really interested in town and they do not access modern internet venues of communication. So I think we need to do more of a job to communicate some of these things. And for Mr. Coffey personally, I was looking for Dog's Day Out, see if that was listed, and I was looking for hairstyling, and I was it was sort of nice to see them under personal services. I don't know if you had a chance to see that, but it's all sort of hair and dogs and the same thing. But it's there. I was glad to see it there. Okay, I went through it and I'm like, where is that? How can we define this?
Hair's hair, right?
Yes.
Salon's a
Hair's
salon, for those of us that have hair, I suppose. Personal services. I do have a question, just so it's on the record. I spoke to Mr. Coffey briefly before on packet page 44, page 41 of the document, under zoning permit, letter C. If we approve this tonight, which I recommend we do, I'd like to attach an amendment to it that we get C cleaned up, because it's not word or roll. Can you give us the intent of C?
Yeah, it's basically, that section of 58-1.6, I believe is what it is. That's setting forth the procedure for when any applicant applies for any application, whether it's a rezoning, special use permit, et cetera. And so it's just an awkwardly worded sentence that's trying to account for way too many variations. But what it's trying to say is, here's what you do when you apply, regardless of who you are.
Right.
And we'll clarify it.
And like we've discussed many times in the past, if we're looking for a perfect document, we're going to be 20 years from now, we're still going to be doing it. So this can always be amended. We do the best we can, and we address things as they come up. And I think you've done a great job. And that was the biggest question I had. Anybody else?
No, sir, I just want to make sure, transparency, as Ms. Carroll, said, we want to make sure that we're transparent with our community. And I think that we hired the Berkeley Group, from what I can tell, back in 2014 and brought them on to revamp and look at all of our ordinances. And they spent about a year looking at our ordinances, and they came back to us and pretty much said, all right, this is what we're recommending you to do in a three-phase prong attack. And then back, what I can tell is, in the October 1st meeting, 2015, is when the town council actually put forward and said, all right, we want the Berkeley Group to go ahead and start the process of getting this rewrite kicked off. And then they came to us in March 6th, 2016, and that's when we really started peeling into it. And we've been working on this, and minor changes have gone on the way within this past year, but this is something that I know that the town and town council have been looking at since back in 2014 when we brought on the Berkeley Group. And I think that we've done a great job with it. And as Mr. Coffey says, you always want to review this document. You want to review it every year and look at it and make sure that it's the best of what it can be. And there's always changes that can be made throughout. But I think we've done a great job.
All right, any other comments? This document has been in the works long before any proposed upcoming project or any current project long before any of that was done. So this is, and another thing that took a long time was the signs ordinance component. We're very unique in the town as far as history with the ARB and all that. Plus you add in all the federal cases, Supreme Court decisions. And as soon as we approve this, it could be a Supreme Court case. It means we have to go back and redo it again with content and all the rest. So I appreciate everybody's work. So without dragging this on, any other comments before we make a recommendation? All right, no further comments. Do we have a recommendation to approve this, to send it up to the town council for a public hearing for their next meeting?
I will make a motion that we send to the town council for their approval, chapters 38 and 58, the Unified Development Ordinance zoning and subdivision plans.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carroll. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? All right, and we can clean up that one point that I brought out. So when we send it to the, it's not really changing anything in it, it's just making it a little more clear for the town council. All right, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Bear with me. Please.
Abstain.
Kathy Casada.
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
Anna.
Yes.
Yes.
And Mr. Cottle? Yes. All right, thank you. All right, town planner updates, sir, and welcome to Haymarket.
Thank you. You received in your package spreadsheets with all the different projects on it. I'm really getting up to speed. Kimberly helped me quite a bit to put that together. I think the best way for me to approach this is tell you I'm getting up to speed with all the projects. I don't have anything specific to report on. We've had a number of ARB applications come in, all the site plan. I can try to detail it at our next meeting.
She's going to give them forms.
Yeah, I don't see that.
We don't have that.
Okay, all right, not a problem.
That's what Kim's running.
That's fine. And I realize this is an exciting time to come on board, but there's a lot going on. I know Sheets has taken down the one side of their pumps. They're rapidly working on that. I haven't really heard too many complaints from the citizens about the gas pumps.
Still available.
Still available. It's the closest place to get gas. I think the traffic's clearing up a little bit. I know there's that wall and moving the traffic lanes. Mr. Shand, do you have any update about the interchange out here?
They're actually ahead of their schedule. They're anticipating September they're going to be through, maybe even the mid to latter part of August, which is 3 months ahead of schedule. The project officer, I actually spoke to her yesterday, I guess. As you know, we'll be taking over Prince William County, or you probably didn't know, as of the 10th, as of Monday. I'll be wearing dual hats in charge of Loudoun County as well as Prince William County until they hire a replacement out in Loudoun. But they're real happy with the way things are going. The main issue they're having there are their lanes getting blocked. With the way, in fact, my wife was kind enough to bring this up to them, since she also works for VDOT, and talk to them. It's kind of confusing where they have the lights. They have the stop bars, but people are going right through the stop bars, and it's basically blocking the road. A couple of alternatives there is, We could ask the chief to have folks up there, but it's kind of tough to issue citations on that for blocking the roadway because of the present setup with those stop bars being where they are, the lights being so far ahead. It's just it's kind of a mess right now at times, especially during rush hour in the afternoon. But here soon, as they're opening up more, they're really starting to move ahead with some of the new paving, a couple of the lanes. So they're moving ahead, and it's going to clear up. It's going to take another 6 weeks to 2 months to really get where they really want to be, and that should clear up a lot of the, I don't want to say confusion, but just the mass transit there and with the roads getting blocked and all. So
Will they move the stop bars?
they're looking at a couple of different things. The problem with the stop bar is they're pretty far back now. If you move them up, people are still going to go past those stop bars. The lights, they'll go through the light, and yesterday, myself, and I wasn't in my official vehicle, but I was blocked for an entire light trying to go north on 15. So, all I can say is patience kind of is a virtue there, but it's going to get better. With Sheets, right now, only using the one entrance and exit, that kind of ties that up a little bit more. But I've been kind of impressed in watching folks let people cut in, coming out from Sheets or coming in from Chick-fil-A or Walgreens or whatever. So, but it's just going to take some more patience. It's going to be a good 6 weeks to 8 weeks before it clears up even more.
When you say it's going to be done ahead of time, will that include the sidewalks and all the walkways?
The entire project is supposed to be done, I think it's September or October. And of course, our contractor, surely the sooner they get through, the more profit for them. So they're ahead of schedule now, and they're pushing through. As long as we have the weather, rains obviously just freeze everything. They're not going to be doing a lot of that work during the rains, especially any paving that they have to do. But they've done quite a bit of the site preparation now on the one island between 66 and 15. As you're getting on to 66 east there, if you've seen how they're starting to landscape now off to the left and all. They're, again, kind of talking circles there, but they're way ahead of schedule. And they're confident that they're going to be able to clear up some of the traffic problems. I hope so. I do it 2 or 3 times a day, so I'd like to see it cleared up.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Kimberly was kind enough to run off copies of
No
the
problem.
report. And I would like to add one thing under the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay.
The QBE applicant has withdrawn their application with the BZA. And that was scheduled for the 13th of this month, and that meeting will now not be held because the application has been withdrawn.
All right, thank you.
So the rest of those listed there, you probably know as much as I do.
Okay. All right, any comments from the commissioners about this?
I know that there were blight letters outstanding. Are there any updates on that? I'm trying to read through quickly, but for some of the properties here.
I'm not aware of the status of those.
Are you talking about across the street?
Yes. Yes.
There's an agreement between the town and the property owner to remedy the situation within, I think, 45 or 60 days. I'd have to look at when the clock started.
Thank you.
So that's in progress. There's also been a lot of interest generated on the site. We actually met with a developer today on it.
Did the developer have any comments as to what he might want to develop, or?
The few folks that we've been talking to informally about concepts and ideas, It's been incorporating some commercial activity, retail, restaurant, that sort of thing along Washington Street, and some residential development along Payne Lane. Doesn't seem to be the market to hold for hotel type of use or a lot of commercial use along all the lots there, just to make the numbers work yet. So we'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
So the discussion today was more of a mixed-use discussion from the developer.
And the fairgrounds, I don't see anything on that.
The company Lidl has withdrawn their application for a special use permit. We received that about a week ago.
Okay.
My understanding is they've been withdrawing across other parts of Virginia, so we're not the only community.
So that means they will not be coming in, or is that?
That's correct. As of right now, they will not be coming in.
Okay, thank you.
Is that just are we talking about just the townhouses and the hotel?
No, just the grocery store.
The grocery store.
The commercial, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Specialty store.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, well, thank you for that, and again, welcome. And I would like to talk briefly about this plan use map. A couple comments here. I'm looking at the one that we all are sitting here with. It was dated 11/30/2016. It was revised 2/28/17. I know the folks from Dogs Day Out have made comment during citizens' time about getting their property changed to B1, looking at my notes here. And on this updated map, it's showing that property's B1. And then Mrs. Leonard had spoken during citizens' time about her property, and I'm looking at this updated land use map, and it's showing it as B1. And then the 3 lots along Washington Street right now on this are zoned, or plan use map residential, R1, and I've noticed that there's 3 real estate signs about commercial coming. I would really like to see us just put B1 on those and tie this whole street all the way up to Miss Leonard's property and just B1. I'm looking at this thing in transitional commercial. Unless I don't know what I'm looking at, I don't even see anything on this colored in.
I don't either.
I believe that's because we directed, I apologize to the gentleman from the Berkeley Group at one of our previous work sessions to remove that transition commercial. I know we asked him to remove it on Fayette Street. And then as well as the properties across from the Raffertys and the Watts were zoned TC in that map that he had given us, but they were already zoned B1, so I believe we asked him to remove those from TC as well, and I believe that is why we no longer see that TC on our map here.
Yeah, I would just like to see us get rid of the transitional commercial, let it go B1, and then the zoning text amendment is going to determine what goes in there, the setbacks and parking. I mean, that's going to determine it as well. So if we could clean this map up, and if we could advertise it, and we take this up next meeting, unless there's objections, any thoughts on that?
Just a question here. I have a little problem with color, so
Okay,
I'm referring to the last lot before, on St. Paul Street,
yeah, that's a single-family home.
single-family abutting Mrs. Leonard's property.
That's part of Green Hill Crossing.
It is part of Green Hill
Yes, sir.
Crossing. And is that also going to be a commercial, or not commercial?
I would like to see, I mean, that's going to have to stay. I mean, that's already a residential home as
That's-
part of Green Hill Crossing.
But you just said you wanted to have
Right.
everything
Okay, let me,
along Washington.
what I'm talking about are these 3 right here.
Lacey's was already changed, it doesn't
I
reflect it.
thought, yes.
That was
that
changed in
Mr.
the planned
Watts-
land use. This is the zoning map.
right? He's still,
When they built that house, they had the opportunity to turn it to face Washington Street, and it could have been, if you notice, the next three after me are facing Washington Street. They opted to turn that one to face Mr. Watts, so it would not be one. The terminology was that all the properties that faced Washington Street.
okay, thank you. Yeah, I would just like to see us put those as B1. Obviously, this has to go to public hearing, and obviously, we will advertise. I think Mrs. Carroll brought out a good point. We have that little electronic sign that the police department's put out before. We could certainly do something with that to advertise. But I think cleaning up the zoning text amendment, cleaning up this plan use map, or proposed zoning map, rather, will go a long ways to alleviating a lot of angst that we've been working on.
I'm Mrs. Rafferty. I have two of those three. I was just going to say, if you needed to put signage on our property, we have the future commercial interest coming soon, signs out there. Just let me know. I will give you my information. But if you needed to put signage on the properties, to post something to make this process happen faster, I'd be happy to do that.
All right, so can we get this, is there agreement? Let's just go around the table, we'll start over here.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, Mr. Carroll? Ma'am?
Yes. I thought that if a property is residential and they wanted to purchase the property and then the property would become business, it was a little bit of a bargaining tool for the town itself. So I'm not quite sure. I think that was a reason why Mr. Coffey had said that we should change it back. So I'm not quite sure. Steve, what would your opinion be?
Properties, when they were purchased, when we purchased them years ago, were future transitional commercial.
Right.
We purchased
Yeah.
them as transitional
Commercial,
So,
yeah.
and then they were downplanned, so we've actually been harmed
By that.
by the actions in the past, and we're trying to actually get that corrected. And when we purchased them, actually, I think it was, Jack was the mayor at that time, and he said, they're gonna be commercial, you gotta just put in the paperwork, blah, 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 and then it all went in a different direction. So we spent the money on that, being told that that's the direction we were going. And so I really would like to see it go back to the way we were told that it was when we made this investment.
So transitional commercial would be,
No, I mean, we bought it transitional commercial, and then it was supposed to be going commercial, we were supposed to submit the paperwork.
Okay.
And then that all moved away.
Ma'am, I'm not trying to be rude, but we're going to work on this, and we'll get it next one. I can assure you we'll be on the next agenda, because I want to get this done as well as you.
Okay, good.
Okay? Thank you. And again, I hope I don't come across as rude, but we want to get this done. All right, Mr. Leek?
Yes, sir. I just want to make sure we're clarifying. We're going to be asking to change our zoning map, not the plain land use map, but the zoning map, correct?
Correct.
Excellent. Then I'm all in favor, sir. The only thing I would like to do is if we could get into the record those actual addresses that we're trying to change so there's no miscommunication. If you bear with me one moment, I can get those pulled up for you.
Okay. Madhu?
I'm okay with that changing to, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
so if I can clarify, it's just the three properties, right? Just these three.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And this one's already on
Already
here.
got one. That's,
Right.
I'm okay with that.
I would like to add that clearly there's confusion even on the board for the plan use map and for the zoning map. So in the future, when we print these out, I'd like a little script at the top defining exactly what it is as opposed to something else. Because if we don't know, we certainly can't expect townspeople to know. and they are very specific terms. So we need to be good teachers.
Right. Good point, Jan. This has been a point of confusion ever since I got involved in town government almost 3 years ago. We need to clean this up. So let's, ma'am, if you don't mind, let's make sure the dogs day out. It's already on here is B1. Mr. Leake's pulling up those 3 addresses.
It's actually going to be 4 address, Chairman, because I believe one of those parcels is a well parcel. You can see there's a small sliver in there. And for the record, those parcels is 14871 Washington Street, 14845 Washington Street, 14851 Washington Street, 14841 Washington Street.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I'd like to just ask a question. I'm mostly here to listen and learn, but are you including the Watts? That includes the Watts property, those numbers that you.
That is the Watts property. Yes, ma'am. All right, let's get that on for the next. We'll advertise it, and then we can get this going. And then hopefully, and I like Mrs. Carroll, or suggestion where we can differentiate between the two. And I think that'll go a long ways of, so everybody knows what the playing rules are, what the field is. Because I would not be really happy if I bought a property and he said, she said, I want to see it in writing. It doesn't do anybody any good. All right, anything else before we adjourn? Yes, sir.
We may have a problem with our meeting date, the first Wednesday in May.
All right. Everybody can pull out your calendar here.
Would it be possible to make it the second Wednesday in May?
That's more than
Just for, yes.
for my.
So you're proposing moving it from Wednesday the 3rd, to Wednesday the 10th.
Yes,
That's, yes.
just for
May.
the 1 of May.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I mean, I have
So
no
you
no
two are
conflict.
okay with it. It works for me, Mrs. Pastanello.
I think I'm okay with it.
Okay, Mr. Leake?
I apologize. What day, sir?
That's the 10th, moving it from the 3rd to the 10th.
Yes, sir. I'm fine with that.
Okay, Madhu?
I'm okay with that.
All right, ma'am, can we move it to the 10th, and then you can backtrack the advertising for the public hearing? Is that okay? Sir, does that work for you? All right, appreciate it. So let's go to the 10th then, and if we could change that on the town's website. Oh, that was easy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. And we'll still keep it at 7 p.m., correct?
Correct.
All right, anything else? I think it's been very profitable.
So, one question, so we'll do the planned use map next time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I noticed,
I'm sorry, zoning map, even I'm getting, yes, ma'am. Correct, zoning map,
next time,
the zoning map.
next time.
ZONING, zoning map, yes, ma'am.
Should be at the top of your map.
It is. It is.
It is. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
A second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.